Spooky season is officially here and I am excited. Alexa, please send me an angel. So earlier in the week we had our very first house announcement of Halloween Horror Nights 29 and I am super excited because Stranger Things is going to be returning this year. Now this is something that the hardcore fans were very much expecting and we all kind of assumed that it would be the first house reveal. But what we weren't expecting was what we learned along with the reveal is that this house is going to feature scenes from Stranger Things 2 and the yet to be released Stranger Things 3. So Stranger Things 3 doesn't actually premiere until the 4th of July, so we don't really have a lot to go on with what we're hoping to see from that season just yet. So I'm not going to get too much into Stranger Things 3 in this video, but I'll definitely do another video after Stranger Things 3 is released so that we can talk a little bit about what kind of scenes we think that we're going to see from that season. One thing that we do know, however, is that the fantastic artist Kyle Lambert has been working with Universal Studios this year to create some fantastic art. And I will post a little picture of that here because it looks so cool. So some things that I'm super hoping to see in this year's house are the return of the amazing face characters that we had last year. Those guys were identical to the kids from Stranger Things. It was ridiculous. I have no idea where they found them, but I really hope they can manage to bring them back this year. I'm also incredibly excited to see what kind of things they're going to do with the demo dogs from this season, because the Demogorgon puppets that we had last year were absolutely insane. They were so beautiful and so cool to look at, so I know that they're going to do an amazing job with the demo dogs. I also really can't wait to see how the Mind Flayer will be represented in the house, whether it will be a physical structure or a giant puppet or some kind of lighting or projection effect. I'm very interested to see how they're going to pull that off in the house. Obviously I very much love pumpkins, so I really would love to see the pumpkin patch scene in this house. I'm a huge fan of Stranger Things and I really loved the Stranger Things house that we had last year. I totally didn't mind waiting excessive amounts of time to go into this house because I felt like it was worth every minute of waiting. I know that some people disagree with me and think that the wait times were ridiculously long, some of my friends included. I very much love the show and I'm very happy that it's going to be returning. So some other scenes that I imagine that we'll see in the house are things like Eleven closing the gate. That was such an epic scene in the series and I'm curious to see how they'll pull that off in the house. The return to Hawkins' lab, and I imagine that we'll also see Will's possession scene. And I feel like we couldn't do a Stranger Things 2 house without seeing a whole bunch of Demodog puppets attacking poor Bob. Alright people. We'll get to see Bitch and Eleven with her slicked back hair and a cool little blazer, and some of the newer characters that were introduced in Stranger Things 2, like 8. So if we're having Stranger Things 2 and Stranger Things 3 at this year's event, it's safe to assume that we won't be seeing Stranger Things represented at Halloween Horror Nights 30 next year because the new season won't be out by then. But I am curious as to why they would do a mix of the two seasons in this year's house. Why not save Stranger Things 3 for next year? Is it because they already have a stacked lineup ready for Halloween Horror Nights 30 and it's not going to fit in? Or is it to do with some kind of licensing? I guess we'll have to wait and see. So moving back to the very cool Stranger Things 3 trailer, which was also released last week. Again, we don't have an awful lot to go off looking at scenes that could potentially be in the house wise, but we do get to see some sets that could potentially be in the house, like Starcourt Mall, which is where a lot of the very first trailer that we saw was based. That's where Steve has his new job, and you guys know I love me some Steve Harrington. So it looked to me like this mall will be the setting of an awful lot of the season. As well as the mall in the trailer, we also see a fairground setting, and there's a cool part of the trailer where there is a hall of mirrors, which is something that's been at the event multiple times before. But there's a hitman, I guess, wandering through this hall of mirrors, and when I saw that part of the trailer, I was like, yeah, I can see that being in a Halloween Horror Nights house. We also see a hospital in the trailer, which is where we get our very first glimpse at the creature, or one of the creatures that we'll be seeing in Stranger Things 3. And to me, it looked like it was one of the human characters transforming into one of these creatures. And the reason that I thought that was because earlier in the trailer we see Billy, who is Max's brother. in the shower, and he has this kind of wound on his arm, and it almost looks like some kind of black poison of some sort is like going through his veins, which led me to believe that maybe Billy will be transforming into some kind of creature from the Upside Down. This whole trailer left me with an awful lot of questions that I'm excited to have answered when the season premieres in July. So before we wrap the video up, let's talk a little bit about some speculation of other things that could potentially be at this year's event. So keeping in with the Netflix kind of theme, a house that's being very, very heavily rumoured or talked about within the Halloween Horror Nights community since it came out last year is The Haunting of Hill House. Now this was incredibly popular, and the whole of my Twitter feed and my Instagram feed and Facebook groups and etc. at the time of this season coming out were all talking about how they would love to see this at the event. I definitely was obsessed with The Haunting of Hill House when it came out. I thought it was a fantastic show. I thought it was filmed beautifully. I loved the story. Do I think that it would work well as a Halloween Horror Nights house? I am unsure. But there's been plenty of IPs at the event in the past where I've kind of thought, I don't know if that's going to work as a house, I'm not sure how they're going to do it, and they've pulled it off a million times better than I could have ever imagined. So I'm unsure about The Haunting of Hill House, would love to see it, I just don't know if we'll see it this year. Another very heavily talked about IP is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So the Scare Zone last year was incredibly popular. It was such a fun zone, the costumes were amazing, the interactions are fantastic, and when you watch the film you can definitely see how it would work as a house. I personally would love for Killer Clowns to make a return. Again, I just don't know if it'll be this year, but I definitely would not be disappointed if it was. A house that's been rumoured quite a bit for the last few days is House of a Thousand Corpses. Now if you watch these videos regularly and you've been watching for a few years, or you listen to my podcast Universal After Dark, you know that I never shut up about how I would love to see this house at Halloween Horror Nights. It's one of my all-time favourite horror films. I love Rob Zombie. I think that this film would work amazing as a house. So if this rumour is true, I will be very, very happy. Another speculated house for this year is The Thing, the original. We did have the remake at the event a few years ago, and this one does tend to be circulating the internet yearly. Again, definitely would not be disappointed if we saw The Thing at this year's event. I definitely think it would fit the kind of new recurring theme of having a kind of classic loved horror film represented at the event. Things like The Exorcist, The Shining, Poltergeist. I think The Thing would definitely fit in there. I've been seeing people talking online about whether or not they think that we'll have another kind of underlying 80s theme again this year. I think it worked well last year, but I don't know whether people are kind of just tying that to Stranger Things, or whether it's other kind of speculated houses like Ghostbusters, Gremlins. We have the new Critters show, which has just come out on Shudder, and again, Critters is one of my like dream houses that I would love to see at Halloween Horror Nights. So when you line all of those speculated houses up, an 80s theme does make sense. I just don't know if that's the way that they're going to go this year, or if we even need to have a theme that ties everything together. So that is it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what rumours you've been hearing about houses or scare zones for this year, or any houses that you would absolutely love to have at this year's event. If you're having Halloween Horror Nights withdrawals and you haven't already, you can go and check out my playlist of vlogs from last year's event. And I'm still in the process of uploading those, and they're going out about every other week right now. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure that you do so that you don't miss them. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram here, and then we can talk about all of the Halloween Horror Nights stuff. I'll be back in a few weeks with the next Halloween Horror Nights house announcement video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you then. Bye bye.